Today we are going to be looking at Korah, Dathan, and Abiram in Numbers 16. Numbers 16. And I debated whether or not to give you the Aesop fable of the wolf and the lamb, but I think I will. And here it goes. So please take notes on this. It will be on the final. A stray lamb stood drinking one morning on the bank of a woodland stream. That very same morning, a hungry wolf came by farther upstream, hunting for something to eat. He soon got his eyes on the lamb. As a rule, Mr. Wolf snapped up such delicious morsels without making, and this guy gets a pun, any bones about it. Okay. But this lamb looked so helpless and innocent that the wolf felt he ought to have some kind of excuse for taking his life. And the wolf says, "How dare you paddle around in my stream and stir up all that mud?" He shouted fiercely. "You deserve to be punished for your rashness." "But your highness," replied the trembling lamb, "do not be angry. I cannot possibly muddy the water you are drinking up there. Remember, you are upstream and I'm downstream." "You do muddy it," retorted the wolf savagely. "And besides that, I've heard that you told lies about me last year." But the lamb replies, "How could I have done so?" pleaded the lamb. "I wasn't born until this year." "If it wasn't you, it was your brother." "I have no brothers," said the lamb. "Well then," snarled the wolf, "it was someone in your family anyway. But no matter who it was, I do not intend to be talked out of my breakfast." And without more words, the wolf seized the poor lamb and carried her off to the forest. And here's what Aesop tells us. The tyrant can always find excuse for his tyranny. Okay? I mean, look how well, it's the water. Well, it's this, well, it's that. Well, we're going to see three people here, or some of three of them.
Would you repeat the scripture, please?
This is
A fable.
Aesop.
No, I don't mean, I mean the scripture.
This is First Aesop, chapter 19, verses 6 and 12. Number 16.
Numbers, okay, thank you.
Yes.
It's right after Moses.
Right after the first book of Moses. Okay. Oh, this place is going downhill fast. Okay, now here we go. Here we go. Now, rebellion, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Rebellion is open, organized, and armed resistance to one's government or ruler. And in this case, it was a leadership issue, as we're going to see. Resistance to or defiance of any authority, control, or tradition. And then I love this definition. Rebellion is the act of rebelling. Thank you for that. That really helps, doesn't it?
From the internet.
No, I got this from Dewey. And I'm not supposed to tell you, but this outline comes from Dewey. I'm not supposed to tell you that. Okay? Dewey does it. He also said, don't ever say Dewey says. Okay, well, Dewey said this, but I'm going to say he says. Okay, here we go. And we've been through a rough year. There's been a lot of ugliness and destruction and rebellious behavior. If I don't like something, I feel like, or something's not going my way, I feel I'm justified in utilizing any means to get noticed, listened to, or to get my way. And have we noticed when someone doesn't like something, just about any reason will do to justify whatever action is taken against it. No matter how harmful, how untruthful, how slanderous the action may be. Asserting baseless claims and accusations has become an accepted way of hiding the dark and subversive motives hidden in one's heart. How many know who Machiavelli was? He's not in the Bible. Okay? The Machiavellian principle was the ends justify any means to get to those ends. And there are some people who take that very seriously. It doesn't matter who I destroy, who I damage, who I make fun of. However, I need to get to that end. And whatever I need to do, I will do it. All right, now that's very much the bad guys in this study. A few men opposed Moses and Aaron and led a mob. And we talked about mob rule before in this class. It is easy to be part of a mob. Some people are part of a mob and they have no clue why they're part of that mob. But it seemed like a thing to do at the time. All right, so there was a rebellion in the camp, as we will see here in chapter 16 of Numbers. We will see that there was a rebellion in the camp, and this, regrettably, is not the only time that Moses was challenged. Moses' leadership was challenged. You recall his sister and Aaron challenged him. All right, so here we start at verse 1 of chapter 16. Korah, son of Ishar, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, and certain Reubenites, Dathan and Abiram, sons of Eliab, and On, son of Peleth, became insolent. What does insolent mean? And that's not, you take it for diabetes. What does insolent mean? Argumentative, yeah. Have any of you, and I don't need a show of hands, have any of you ever had a child who was insolent at one time or another? For those of you who have been teachers, you have never run into an insolent student, have you? No, never. It just does not happen. It's not our life. And rose up against Moses. Now with them, here's the mob forming. Yeah, we're still up there. I don't see anybody but me up there.
Yeah, there's nobody in there
A couple
yet.
of you guys there, yeah.
Some white hair
Yeah, on the front row somewhere. All right. And here we rose up against Moses, and with them were 250 Israelite men, well-known community leaders who had been appointed members of the council. And it's important to note that these 250 leaders who were members of the council, if we go to Numbers chapter 1, verse 16, they are referred to as being appointed from the community, leaders of their ancestral tribes. They were the heads of the clans of Israel. So they enjoyed a leadership position, but it was supposed to be in subordinate to Moses and Aaron. All right, so they all joined this. They came together as a group to oppose Moses and Aaron and said to them, "You have gone too far." Okay, this is their challenge. You have gone too far. The whole community is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is with them. Why then do you set yourselves above the Lord's assembly? Now, what are they accusing Moses and Aaron of doing?
Of usurping powers that
Usurping-
should not be theirs. They don't like the fact that they have to report to them.
They don't like the fact, what they're doing is they're accusing Moses and Aaron of usurping power. We're all equal here, Moses and Aaron, and you shouldn't be telling me what to do. And as a result, we've got this rebellion on our hands. And it basically is that. That's what it is. What they're upset with is they are setting themselves above the Lord's assembly. Now, of course, right here, we could go right to the punchline and say, well, who set them above the whole assembly? God did. Did they know that?
Yes.
Yes, they knew that. But it gets better or worse, depending on your perspective. The mob does stupid mob things. We're going to drop down to verse 8. We'll come back to verse 4 through 7, because that becomes important a little bit later on. But we'll go to verse 8 here. Moses also said to Korah, "Now listen, you Levites." Okay? They said to Moses and Aaron, "You've gone too far. Now listen to us." But now he said, "Now you listen, you Levites. Isn't it enough for you that the God of Israel, Hint, hint, hint. The God of Israel has separated you from the rest of the Israelite community and brought you near him to do the work at the Lord's tabernacle and to stand before the community and minister to them. He has brought you and all of your fellow Israelites, or Levites rather, I'm sorry, near himself, but now you are trying to get the priesthood too. Who had the priesthood? Aaron had. He had the priesthood. It's against the Lord that you and your followers have banded together. Who is Aaron that you should grumble against him? Now we can go back. How many of you believe that the Israelites grumbled once in a while? I think it is replete in the scriptures that deal with that horrific trip from Egypt to the land of milk and honey, and then of course remember from the 31st January, when we studied about the 10 spies, the unfaithful, they couldn't go in because they were totally unfaithful. So they had to wander in the wilderness for 40 years. And that's what they're doing at this point. They are wandering in the wilderness. And also we should notice that the Levites, as I said, they were the priestly, that's where the priests came from, was the tribe of Levi. Now, the Reubenites, who was Reuben?
One of the sons of Israel.
One of the sons of Israel, the oldest son of Israel. So, under ancient tradition, the oldest son of Israel should get what? Double share, and should be put up on a pedestal, if you will, should not worship, but should be given a great deal of respect. Who got that honor? Starts with a Jew and ends with a Judah. One, yeah, ends with a duh, let me think. Judah. Why did Judah get that? He was not the firstborn.
Jesus was coming out of Judah.
Okay. Why Judah? If you sleep with your father's concubine, as Reuben did, you're out of here. Okay, that's what happened. Now that's just a little review. But we have these individuals here who are, they want more than they should. They are not satisfied with the leadership, I guess we should say. So who appointed them?
They appointed themselves.
Yeah, they appointed themselves. But who appointed the leadership?
God.
It's God. And as Moses says very clearly in this passage, the God of Israel is involved in appointing these individuals. You know, in a way, and I know we sometimes come down on Moses kind of hard, but I would think if I were Moses, I would rather go back to my hometown and lead sheep around rather than leading these people around, right? I've had enough of you guys. You want to lead it? Take it. I'm out of here. But he didn't do that. That's not what he was appointed to do. Then Moses summoned Dathan and Abiram, the sons of Eliab, but they said, "We will not come." How many of you have given a directive to your child and the child says, no, no, okay, not coming? Isn't it enough, they go on to say, and I love this, that you have brought us out of the land flowing with milk and honey to kill us in the wilderness? What land are they referring to? Egypt. Life was wonderful in Egypt, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was straw making bread.
Remember when we studied about Moses taking them out of this so-called land of milk and honey to the land of milk and honey? What was going on with the Israelites? They were fruitful and multiplying. So what did Pharaoh say? We've got to stop this multiplying. They can be fruitful, but no multiplying. I'm gonna take that away. Or you can be fruity and not. But anyway, what you do is, what he did was work them harder so that they will die. He worked them to death. That was the idea. That's what with milk and honey was going on in Egypt. Doesn't sound like that to me, does it? Does it to you? No. And also, that didn't work. They continued to multiply. In fact, the Israelite women were so good at giving birth, they gave birth without the midwife, and as a result, they continued to have children. So what did he do? He decided, okay, we're going to every son that's born is going to be thrown in the Nile. And remember, the Nile is a god in Egypt. It's one of many gods. They have gods to mosquitoes and grasshoppers and all of that. But the Nile is a god. So they were actually making child sacrifices to God, to their God. All right? And what happened? They cried out, and God heard their crying out. And he sent Moses to bring them out of there and to take them to the land of milk and honey. So when these two sons of Eliab say, you brought us up out of the land flowing with milk and honey, that was a direct slap in the face to God. Because he said, that's where you're going. Now, they thought that, I imagine they thought that was pretty cute, but it wasn't. And to die in the wilderness. Well, whose fault was it, people, that you're in the wilderness right now? You could be in the land of milk and honey. But oh no, they're so big. They will beat us. We can't do it. Yeah, well, God said, you faithless people. And now you're going to have to be in the wilderness for 40 years. And are you going to die there? Sorry about that, young man, but you're going to die.
Your children will take the land.
Yes. And the children will take the land. And as we see later on, they will have kings who worship Baal and other things. But yeah, that's another story. But the point of it is, they are being so arrogant about this. And okay, I've said enough. I get my blood pressure. And then I'm really hard to deal with. And now you also want to lord it over us. Moreover, you haven't brought us into the land of milk and honey or given us an inheritance of the fields and vineyards. Why not? They had it. They could have had it. They could have been living large there. Yes, sir.
Well, and we realize we're gonna be sustained by the rest of the Israelites, so, you know, they got service as a reward, but they weren't happy even with that.
No. And think about that. Think about how, I think people here, well, of course, we try to keep it within the proper confines, but I think it's an honor to be able to teach people. Now, you may not think it's a great honor right now, but next week you will. You will change your mind between now and then. But the point is, it should be an honor to be a teacher. And Levites taught. That was one of the things they did. They taught the worship. And they should be honored that God has selected them as his people, his children. No, they're looking at it totally different. I'm not getting my way, so I'm upset. All right. And then this is the final thing there as we go through verse 14 there. Do you want to treat these men like slaves? That's what you were when you were in Egypt. And then, no, we will not come. Okay? This is kind of like a tennis match. Poof, now it's in Moses' court now. He sent it over, come. No, back to you. No, we're not coming. Then Moses became very angry and said to the Lord, now who's he angry with?
He's angry with the Israelites, people.
The people, he's not angry with God. He said to the Lord, do not accept their offering. I have not taken so much as a donkey from them, and I have not, nor have I wronged any of them. Okay, now is that true? That's true, and he has put up with this forever, it seems like. Moses said to Korah, you and your followers are to appear before the Lord tomorrow. You and they and Aaron. Right? Each man is to take his censer. And what is a censer? It's a little burn thing. And you put the incense on top and it goes up. And you have this burning in here. So you bring your censer. And put incense in it, 250 censers in all. Now the 250 are who? Those members of the council. And it actually would probably be 253. Because the 3 men are going to have their own as well. That's what they're supposed to do. So each of them, now, when he said the Lord says, at least they did listen to that and complied with it. So each of them took his censer, put burning coals and incense in it, and stood with Moses and Aaron at the entrance of the tent of meeting. When Korah had gathered all his followers in opposition to them at the entrance of the tent of the meeting, this is not a good thing coming up. The glory of the Lord appeared to the entire assembly. This is serious, serious business. So here we are at verse 20 then. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, he talks to Moses and Aaron. Doesn't talk to them directly. Separate yourselves from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once. If I'm Korah and I find out about that, this should make me very concerned. He didn't say, I am going to put an end to them sometime, at once. What does at once mean? You told your children, do this at once, right? And we'll leave that alone. All right, we'll move along from that. Whether it got done at once or not is maybe sometimes yes, sometimes no. Now, here is Moses, who, as I said, if I were he, the human part of this in me would come out and say, go for it, God, take them out. What does he do? But Moses and Aaron, there at verse 22, fell face down and cried out, oh God, the God who gives breath to all things, will you be angry with the entire assembly when only one man sins? Once again, he pleads for the Israelites. Now, many of them for whom he is pleading are not involved in this rebellion. And then the Lord said to Moses, say to the assembly, move away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. So when Moses makes this announcement, and he doesn't have a loudspeaker, but when Moses is making this announcement, move away from the tents of these 3 men. If I am one of those 3 men, should I be afraid?
Oh,
Yeah, something bad's about to happen. I may not be the smartest person around, but I'm kind of seeing, I don't want to say handwriting on the wall because that's another scripture, a whole other story, but it is, it's pretty serious. It's very serious. It's life and death here. Moses got up and went to Dathan and Abiram, and the elders of Israel followed him. He warned the assembly, move back from the tents of these wicked men. Do not touch anything belonging to them, or you will be swept away because of their sins. Excuse me. What did they do? You're one of them. What would you do? Yes, absolutely. So they moved away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Dathan and Abiram come out and were standing with their wives, children, and little ones at the entrances of the tent. Okay. So everybody lined up. Something is about to happen. We know that. Okay. Then there at 28. There's going to be a judgment worthy of something totally new. Then Moses said, "This is how you will know that the Lord has sent me to do all these things, that it was not my idea. If these men die a natural death," and he's referring to the 250 plus the 3 men, "die a natural death and suffer the fate of all mankind," which is a natural death, we know that's what lies ahead, "then the Lord has not sent me. But if the Lord brings about something totally new, and the earth opens up its mouth and swallows them with everything that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the realm of the dead, then you will know that these men have treated who? Me? Aaron and me? No. God with contempt." Well, he gives it away, doesn't he? Right there, he says, this is what's going to happen. As soon as he finished saying this, the ground under them, being the 250 and the others, oh no, I'm sorry, 250 it doesn't apply to, but the 3 and their families split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households and all those associated with Korah, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead with everything they owned, and the earth closed over them. And they perished and were gone from the community. I would say yes. Once the earth swallowed them up, they weren't the community anymore, were they? At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too." Well, once again, the Israelites, sometimes it takes a lot to give them a message, but God had been held in contempt by the 3 men and the 250 members of the council. Okay? And a fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense. So what happens to the 250? They're toast, or as we would say, they are burned alive. Can you think of a painful way to die? Being burned alive. How many of us just burn the fingers in? It hurts, but imagine that all over the body. So they don't get away with anything either. They're not swallowed up into the realm of the dead, but they are burned alive. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, to remove the censers," and I love this, "from the charred remains." Oh boy. Get those censers and scatter the coals some distance away, for the censers are holy. The rest are not. Those remains are not. The censers are the men who sinned at the cost of their lives, but they're still holy. So what are we going to do with them? Hammer the censers into sheets to overlay the altar, for they were presented before the Lord and have become holy. Let them be a sign to the Israelites. When we study scripture, do we see signs for the Israelites? They needed to be reminded. There are scriptures that say about learning the law of Moses, or learning the law that God has given to Moses. When you get up in the morning, remember it. When you go down the road, remember it. When you go to bed, remember it. When you are eating, remember it. They had to be constantly reminded of this. And this was another one of those signs or reminders. Maybe 100 years from then, somebody would look at that and say, to their children. This is what those censers overlaying the altar mean. This is what happened. And that is a good way to remember things. So Eleazar, the priest, collected the bronze censers brought by those who had been burned to death, and he hammered them out to overlay the altar, as the Lord directed him through Moses. He did exactly what he was told to do. This was to remind the Israelites that no one except a descendant of Aaron should come to burn incense before the Lord, or he would become like Korah and his followers, and that includes the 250 as well. Now, this is an interesting thing. You think, all right, that's the end of that story, right? No. The next day, the whole Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. You have killed the Lord's people, they said. Has anybody ever seen a flat learning curve? That's it, right there. They've had all of this, and yet they're saying, well, Moses and Aaron killed them. But when the assembly gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron, again, there's more evidence of a flat curve. It's not curving at all. And Aaron, and turned toward the tent of the meeting, suddenly the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord appeared. Now maybe they'll get the message. Maybe. Got to do it again. Then Moses and Aaron went to the front of the tent of the meeting, and the Lord said to Moses, get away from this assembly so I can put an end to them at once. And Moses and Aaron fell on their faces. And we can actually go back, I think, to verse 4 and kind of pick up on that. We'll pause for a moment for a brief break. Okay. Got to be here somewhere. I saw it before. This is embarrassing. I've saved the very best for last.
Would you like us to read it?
Yes, please, read it.
When Moses heard this, he fell face down. Then he said to Korah and all his followers, in the morning the Lord will show you who belongs to him and who is holy, and he will have that person come near him.
Sorry.
How much do you want to read?
60 or 70, 8.
The man he chooses who will cause to come near him. You, Korah, and all your followers are to do this. Take censers, and tomorrow put fire and incense in them before the Lord. The man the Lord chooses will be the one who is holy. You Levites have gone too far.
So he then uses this fits why all of the censors were out there and how the selection process was made. It was not made by, how many of you remember Queen for a Day? Remember, put the Queen over this one, and this one, and this one, and then the audience claps for who has the best story. Okay, that I was only 2 when I saw that. But anyway, what that means is he's not just going to come down and say, Moses is right, you are wrong. He is going to do it in his way, and he did it. All right, so then, thank you for that reading. I should have done that more often. But next week, remember, Dale knows every one of your names. He will know every one of your names, and he will call on you by name. That's what he does in his classes. That's why I won't be here next week. No, it's going to be great. And we'll talk just a little bit, right at the end, we'll talk just a little about where we're going this next quarter. Then Moses said to Aaron, take your censer and put incense in it, along with burning coals from the altar, and hurry to the assembly to make atonement for them. Them who?
The people.
The people, they are still not getting it. They still need atonement. Then, let's see. Wrath has come out from the Lord. And what started? The plague. He still wasn't done with them because they hadn't learned. They still rebelled. So Aaron did as Moses said and ran into the midst of the assembly. The plague had already started among the people, but Aaron offered the incense and made atonement for them. He stood between the living and the dead, and the plague stopped. Once the atonement was made, it stopped. And I love this too. Well, 14,700 people died from the plague. That was from the CDC. They reported that 14,000 had died. People died from the plague, in addition to those who died because of Korah. Now, and then Aaron returned to Moses at the tent of the meeting, for the plague had stopped. Now let's very briefly go over the lessons learned. Obviously, I don't think our rebellion will be that serious, but I think one of the things that this applies to is in modern times, we do not have Moses and Aaron. But in our time, we have our elders. And sometimes, and it's happened here, and it has happened elsewhere, sometimes people do not want to talk to the elders, they would rather talk about the elders. Now that is a modern day version of what was happening here. Yes, elders are selected by humans, but their authority comes from God. So if I go and say, we've got elders here, sometimes are they too old for the mission? Or they make a decision to do something. Why in the world would they do that? And people come to me, I don't know why they come to me. They say, why do you think the elders did that? Well, what I do then is open up my briefcase, get my crystal ball out, and start consulting. I will figure this out for you. No, I said, well, have you gone to the elders? Yes. Did you tell them about this? Yes. What did they say? Nothing. Nothing? Come on. But we've got to be careful, because that is one of the problems that can come up in modern times. We should choose, I'm sorry.
It's interesting to me that the three ringleaders, as you would call them, their whole families were destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
The others, just those 250 men, which, and you don't know if some of their family died from the plague, but had they all been destroyed, it would have really diluted the pool of Levi, priests.
Yes.
And sometimes you wonder, in God's wisdom, He knows that some families are more with the dad and are more rebellious, would also grow up to be rebellious, but the other families were spared. Except, we don't know how many died of the plague.
And we assume this is all in our way of thinking, random. Some of the people didn't wear their masks, so they got the plague. But really, God can determine who gets the plague and who is going to die from it. And I assume that if you got it, it was terminal, because yeah. So it turns on and off. Also, we should be careful who we follow. Be careful about that. There are some people who have, and I've regrettably been witness to this, where one person gets really upset with the congregation, and then he starts holding little meetings, and they start getting together, and you get the same effect as we got in this. And then a rebellion, while cloaked in righteousness and virtue, is usually self-centered and self-seeking. And remember this, I remember we promised a week ago, we were going to look at Philippians 2, 3, and 4, and Dewey was going to make a lesson out of it. Well, we're back to Philippians 2, 3, and 4. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, and not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. And that's the attitude we should have. Some people say, well, I am doing this for the good of the nation. I am doing this for the good of the city. I am doing this for the good of the church. And many times it's really self-centered and self-seeking. And then rebelling against God's leaders is actually rebelling against God. And we reviewed this when we looked at Romans 13, 1 through 2. Let everyone be subject to the governing authority, for there is no authority except that which God has established. The authorities that exist have been established by God. Consequently, whoever rebels against the authority is rebelling against God, what God has instituted, and those who do so will bring judgment on themselves. Now, I know sometimes it's hard for us to grasp the concept that these authorities do so with the authority of God. It's sometimes hard to accept that. And we went through this this election, and there were a lot of on all sides of this issue. And we saw people saying some things that were actually, well, some of them were threatening in a way, but we've got to be careful how we speak. And Dewey once shared, and I'm not supposed to say Dewey says, but he shared, he didn't say. Dewey shared with us that he had been seeing some Facebook postings from members of this congregation that were so bad with respect to that authority. Now, I know you know people, you may be all politicians are crooks, okay? Well, wait a minute, where did their authority come from? Let's be careful how we say things, and that's important.